Awesome, Beulah Youth. Hello and welcome to our second week of Small Talk. And I'm excited this week we have one of my good friends and somebody you know really well, Josh Thompson. Josh is with us this week. And we're going to continue the conversation of what God is teaching people in this season. And so I've asked Josh if he'd be part of this week's conversation. So Josh, tell us a little bit, if people don't know you, just where are you? What do? You obviously were part of our church family for so long. Where are you now? What are you doing?
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, Chris, and good to hear from, just everyone back in the Beulah Youth family. My wife and I, Janae, we grew up at Beulah for many years, so enjoyed lots of good years there. And then just last year, so basically exactly a year ago, like two days from when we're filming this, we moved to Ontario. So now we're living in the GTA. We're in right now. We're in Oshawa. Our church is in Ajax and kind of around what's called the Durham region. And it's like a bunch of these like kind of neighborhoods that have just merged together. And we're working out here. My wife's a nurse, and I'm a young adults pastor at a church called Sanctus Church.
That's awesome. Hey, so it's great for those of you that are in grade 7, maybe grade 8, and you're like, I don't know if I know Josh that well, but obviously a lot of our senior highs and our grade 12s that are watching have been so impacted by you and Janae. So we're going to be looking at a couple of questions. Some of the questions we asked Pastor Joel last week, and for me, it's really interesting to see what God is doing this season. One of two things. Firstly, the individual different things that God is doing in people's lives. And then the second thing of some of the similarities that have been coming up. And it's interesting to note those things and go, is there something God's doing in this season in the bigger church? So Josh, the first question I'd love to ask you is, what has God been teaching you during this season?
Yeah, it's been an interesting season for Jane and I because like we haven't experienced as much change as a lot of people have. Like my wife, she's a nurse, so she's working full time still. For me as a pastor, like I'm still working full time. I'm just working at home now. So it's this like weird thing where like a lot of people have experienced maybe like losing a job or school's kind of canceled and there's a lot of like boredom or just sitting around. For us, things feel quite normal. We just miss seeing our friends in person. I guess a bit of like survivor's guilt there at times. But yeah, in a lot of ways, it's been just an interesting season for us. Like, we every year we do like a word of the year thing. So we pray into like, hey, God, what do you want to just do in our marriage this year, do in our lives, our family together? And this year we got the word patience. So it's really interesting, like back in January when we got that word, we're like, okay, like God, like what the heck is patience about? Like, what does that mean this year? It's been interesting because now that like all this has happened, I'm kind of going back to that word being like, okay, God, is that word attached to kind of this moment with COVID in some way? And it's been interesting. Like I was reading a couple weeks back in Luke 10:40. So that's the whole like Martha and Mary kind of interaction there. So that's the classic. And for those who maybe don't know the story, basically what happens is there's this lady, Martha, and she's all like flustered and annoyed because there's a bunch of people at her house. And she's got her sister, Mary, and Jesus is there and Jesus is like teaching. And Mary's chilling with Jesus and listening, but Martha's all like busy being like, the housewife, like getting the food ready, getting all whatever. And then she's like frustrated. So she's like, Jesus, like, can you tell my sister to help me? Like, this is crazy. Like I'm doing all this work and she's just sitting there. And I love Jesus's response because Jesus is like, Martha, Martha, you're so worried and upset about many things, but only one is needed. And Mary has chosen what is better and it won't be taken from her. And like I've heard that story so many times, but a couple of weeks ago when I was reading it, I was like, oh, like I feel like God's just speaking to me like Josh, you're so worried and upset about all these things. You're busy and you're distracted and you're working hard, but like, could you come and sit at my feet? Could you just come and sit at my feet for a second? And like I'm sure like lots of the leaders and students who are listening to this, like you're dealing with that kind of like feeling of just like I'm upset or like I'm worried. Like I know like so many friends like back in Edmonton, like weddings are being canceled or really messed up or graduation. All my boys in grade 12 there, like grads are just canceled. Like Janae and I were sad because we were hoping to come. We had flights booked to be there for the youth grad this June, and now that's gone. And people are sitting there being like, man, like what's like the fall going to look like? Am I going back to school, or is it online, or like are sports done? Like what the heck, is youth coming back to like in person, like fun stuff ever again? Or are we just like doing Zoom for life? And I think there's like all this like stress that we're probably all feeling of just like, what the heck's going on? And I think there's a grieving, there's a loss in that. And that's what I think Janae and I have been working through, is this like sense of just being like upset about the season. Like, you know, like we don't get to go back to Edmonton and see our, you know, family. Like we have nephews and nieces growing up that we don't get to see. Our grandparents are old and we don't know the last time we'll get to visit them. And there's this sense of just like God, like what's going on here? Like, why are you doing this? I'm upset. I'm worried. And I feel like God's been speaking to my heart, like, just sit at my feet. Be patient. Stop being so busy. Stop being so distracted. You know, be my friend, not just like my worker. And I think, you know, that really matters a lot, because I think like the reaction for someone like me and maybe some of the leaders and students in a time like this might be like, let's just like react and try and fix things or take things into our hands. And we try and like take control of our lives and, okay, I'll just figure it all out myself. But like, I feel like God's been saying to me, like, what if the solutions you try and come up with aren't what God wants? Like, what if they're not what I'm actually trying to do in your life right now, or your heart? So that's what, you know, we've kind of been working through. We got a new puppy recently. His name's Jasper.
Yeah, he's a cutie.
Yeah, he's lots of fun. But it's been interesting because I find like anytime you get like a new experience in life, it like gives you a new metaphor for preaching on or whatever. I feel like what Jasper's been doing for me is because I work at home all day. I'm chilling like at a desk and I'm working. And Jasper always comes and he sits on my feet and he just keeps my feet warm all day. And it's funny because, you know, as he's done that, I've kind of started to think about like, oh, like he just like sits like at my feet. And then when I get up, he gets up and he follows me, and wherever I go, he goes. And sometimes he's too close and he trips me and I almost fall down the stairs and whatever. But he's always with me. But like, you know, like a stray dog or like a dog that runs away, like they're just going crazy in the neighborhood. And then all of a sudden they're desperately looking for their owner when they get hungry or they're lost or they're afraid or they're scared. And like what I feel like is like, what kind of dog do I want to be? Do I want to be the stray dog that's running around? Yeah. Or do I want to be the dog that's sitting at my owner's feet and my father's feet and the one who provides for me and takes care of me? And I'm not going to move and get up until he moves and gets up. And I'm going to follow really closely with where he's going. So that's what God's kind of been speaking to me, is just the idea of patience, sitting with him, waiting for him to move before I move. And yeah, it's been a good work on the heart. So
yeah, no, I love that. Thank you. And that resonates with me too. And the I know for myself, it's that Martha Mary dilemma is tough. And some of us, I know personally, and for those that are watching, this may be a real just God moment where it's just reminded to us that we can be as busy as we can be, but nothing will ever compare at just sitting at the feet of Jesus. And so, Josh, I appreciate that. And in this season, there's obviously been a bunch of new normals. A bunch of things have changed. You're saying that obviously, like your work, you're a young adults pastor, so your job is very much with people, around people, more coffees and more coffees. And it's a people job. And now you're like, hey, I work from home, like always. And there's obviously some new normals that come into all of our lives. But what I want to ask you, and just maybe a question for you, is kind of what thing or maybe something you've been doing in this season of COVID, do you want to actually bring into the new normal? Because I think there's some things that we're doing just now that are like, oh, that's actually quite good. And so what would that be?
Yeah, you know, something that I've been doing just for fun is like doing a lot of running with friends. Got basically bunch of young adult friends on a you know, the same app, and we're just doing this running challenge, and that's been great to just be healthy and get out there, and people are pushing each other hard, so it's fun. So yeah, I hope, you know, to keep running for a while after this. I've always enjoyed that. And for Janae and I, like we've, you know, had, you know, the experience of having breakfast together now, which like basically never happened in our lives.
Yeah.
Work schedules are always like just different, and So yeah, now like the mornings are a bit slower. But I think, what's hard, like, thinking about a question like this is it's like not everything in a sense will be like realistic to move forward. So it's like what's good from this that will move, but also what's kind of just like a nice part of the season that, like for me, I'm going to have to go back to commuting in stupid, Toronto traffic again one day. So I probably won't have breakfast with my wife when that happens. But something that I think has been really cool to see happening, like in my life and in other like young adults' lives, as I talk with them, is I think like a moment like this exposes like what true friendship is.
Mm.
I think it exposes the lack of true friendship that a lot of people have, unfortunately. But I also think this is a time to develop like really good intentional friendships and to build the habits that a good friendship and good community takes. So like I love like this series that you guys are doing where you're talking about community. Like we started, our young adult year in January talking about community. And something that I said to our young adults when I was preaching on that was like if you want good friends, you have to be a good friend. And
Yeah.
so often, like what's happening is we kind of just become friends with those who are around us, like by chance. And we think like, oh yeah, no, like these are totally like my friends. It's like, no, you just happen to have 4 classes with them this semester. Like you guys aren't actually choosing to be friends, just you happen to be in the same class. So like, yeah, you get along and you're friends and you talk and whatever. But as soon as that semester ends, is there anything there actually built in terms of a friendship and community? So like how do I actually be friends with people? So I'm seeing a lot of people in this season like really start to cultivate some good habits of like how to be a friend. Like, oh, I should like ask some friends to like read the Bible with me in the morning, or like I should like hit up my friends like once a week and we should call every week and just put it in the calendar and do that. And I just think that's so good. Like that's so beautiful and healthy. And my hope is that when people leave this time and lots of people get jobs back one day and whatever and school resumes, my hope is that we don't lose that, but that we
Mm.
realize like how important it is to build intentional community and to not let it just be something that we kind of drift into. So yeah, I hope that carries from this kind of moment into the next.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's so good. And I think that even thinking of your first point of God saying, hey, I want you to learn patience this year. And with true friendship comes a lot of patience, and it comes with being able to be there and to be present. And I think what this season is telling us is that we all respond differently, but I think we all are feeling even more, man, I was made to be with other people. Like I was not designed by God to be alone. And we're all experiencing that like loneliness at some stage in this season, and actually going like, this makes sense that God has made me for other people. And so I hope true friendship continues to grow and flourish kind of post-COVID. That's awesome. Final question thrown at you as we think about the new normal and what that may look like whenever that happens. But just what's your hope for the church in this new normal? What do you want the church to be like, and what do you hope it will hope that maybe the church might be because of COVID? Like, what's your thoughts about that?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a great question. I wish I knew. I don't know. Like, honestly, like, it's a tough one. Like, as a pastor, like all of us as pastors are kind of wrestling with this question of like, what's the church look like? And, I think one thing that we maybe can say is that what we have been doing doesn't seem like it's been working incredibly well. So, there's a lot of great leaders who know a lot more than me, who've been at this a lot longer than me. So I want to be like really careful to kind of be like, this is for sure what needs to change. But I think like, yeah, for 50 years, the church in Canada and the US and Europe has declined. And we've got better music and better buildings and better preaching. And like, it feels like a lot of things have upped, but it hasn't like worked. So I think this is a moment of reflection to be like, okay, like, why isn't it working? And I think, personally, like I just see like we put a lot of energy into, Sunday services that are really great. And I think those are important. I think big gatherings matter. But I think for me, I'm really starting to ask the question of like, is that the most important thing, or is that worth how much energy and time we give it? Like, is that really moving the needle? Because right now, like, yes, we've been able to move a lot of that stuff online, which is great. Like, it's great that we can have, access to worship and access to teaching. But I think, especially in a digital moment like this, I think things are going to shift and things are going to change. And I just look like around the world and where's the church growing the fastest right now? Like Iran, China, Brazil, they are not using the same structures and methods that we are. And yeah, it's a different context, but like something's working there and I want to figure out what that is. So yeah, I really think, kind of like my last, answer too, like around community, like I think something's going to shift there. I think people, like, I'm worried that maybe we have made the church more about like an event than a lifestyle. And I'm worried that like, instead of it being like a way of life, it's just like, we're kind of going after like maybe one moment or one experience. And I really think we need to get back to it being a lifestyle. And not just like a thing we go and do, the same as like we go and play hockey and we go and do this dance class or like whatever. I think it needs to change like our whole life. So I think, something that is happening right now, which I like, and I hope it'll continue, is there's a lot of experimentation going on around like, yeah, what does it look like to not make church be like a Sunday thing, but to actually just like live as the church, to like live embodied as the church.
That's awesome. Really good. And I think it's a question that we're thinking about youth, like what that looks like, what the church looks like. But I think in the season we've noticed that, hey, there's maybe some other stuff that we've missed, and there's some other stuff that we've forgotten about as the church, and not just going to church, not making it an event. And I like that the church is not an event; it's the people and actually being the church, not just going to church. So I'm excited for whatever that looks like when it comes back. But thank you for your insights into just what you're experiencing, what God's teaching you in this season, teaching you and Janae and Jasper, and kind of just what's going on in your life. And it's super helpful for us to go, hey, what can we learn from what you've brought to us today? I'm thinking patience is a huge topic to think about in this season. The whole Martha Mary thing is brilliant. Thinking about what does true friendship look like? And then, hey, what is the potential out of this season for what can come? And so, Josh, thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for being a part of Small Talk this week. And we miss you as part of our church family. But we love what you're doing and what you guys are involved with in the GTA and doing some amazing stuff there.
Thanks, man. Well, I appreciate you, Chris, and to the grade 12 boys and girls, Janae and I say hi, and we miss you guys too. And actually, quick last little thing I want to throw in there. I think looking forward, the leaders who are formed in this season, which I think will include a lot of the kids in our youth ministry, like they are going to lead the church differently because of this moment. And I think that's incredible. So like, to those who are in, especially high school right now, you're sitting there being like, okay, like what's going on, whatever, just school's canceled. Like lean into God, because I think God is going to call some of you to be pastors and to be leaders in the church in the future. I think we need more leaders in the church, and we're going to have more leaders with probably smaller platforms. And I think that's good. So we just need more. So like ask God, like, God, what do you want to do with my life? Because I think God's calling leaders forward and calling students right now to step into his church as leaders. And this will be a forming moment for them. So
that's great. Thank you, Josh. And thanks for being a part of Small Talk today. Have a great rest of your day. And everyone, I think, is going to be so blessed by being able to just share with this conversation that I got to have with you. So thank you. And I will see you later.